Good morning, evening, afternoon. Masati here. Hope you are doing fantastic, just like we are here at XI, Exponential Intelligence Sciences. Welcome to another episode of Masati on Sunday, where we really dig into well, the underlying reasons on why things happen the way they do and what you can do about it. Right? And it's not just about mental stuff here, it's about frequency work, which we can transform massively. It's the kind of stuff that you read or you watch movies, the multidimensional space everywhere, everything all at once. Dark matter, by the way. How many of you have watched Dark Matter? Take a look at it. It's on Apple TV. It's quite amazing. Right? And it really explains what XI is about. Again, XI is all about multidimensional consciousness, and then from that, providing proper solutions for the world's problem today. Otherwise, we're just going to be stuck in the shithole, and it's just going to go deeper and deeper and deeper till we commit suicide as a species, and then we just start fresh again. So, hence, that's what we're going into, guys. It's not about anything dark or anything like that. It literally allows us to say shift and transform. This is a waking point for us. Many people think it is the end of the world. Things are going to hell. Nothing's working right. Well, the deal is that nothing did work out right back in the day. Now we're starting to realize that shit. We got to change. We got to shift. We got to transform. We're basically getting kicked in the ass as a species. And go, hey, either wake up or get out. That's the two choices that you have. So there's a great divide. Hence, you're seeing the great divide in politics, religions, and everything else. Okay. All right. Um, some of you talking about the Lionsgate. The Lionsgate is actually a moment in time where the universes or the planetary systems become aligned, and as they become aligned, it allows us to hone the power, uh, tap into that power, and then get us out of where we are at a personal level. Most people want to work on the government, and then you'll it doesn't work that way. You have to work at yourself. You have to work on yourself. The masses have to wake up, and that's where we change the world. Everybody else is just waiting. It's like, well, they should do this and the government should do that, and it's an atrocity that this is happening and that happening. Well, what's your part in it? Right? That's the stance of XI science. What's your part in it? Right? You're all part of this. So we need to go look into ourselves and go, hey, let's do something. Let's go inwards and get rid of the stuff that's causing this perpetual pattern to happen. We can't keep cycling. We got to keep spiraling upwards. All right, in this session, let's correct how people go through ego death, why spiritual ego death is dangerous, and how to do it the right way. Now, ego death, you've heard a lot about ego, and if you take a look at, say ego death or spiritual ego death, there's a ton of stuff on it, and again, it's pretty much all wrong. Right? I'm not saying the process is wrong. I'm not saying you shouldn't go through ego death, but it's all wrong. At the level of consciousness that you do something is what's most important, not what you're doing. Right? In this reality, it's black and white. Right? It's either a one or a zero. It's either this or that. But at higher levels, there is no There is no right or wrong, literally. It's the frequency that you're doing it at. Okay. And I could give you plenty of examples on it doesn't matter what you're doing or what you're taking away from it doesn't matter the experience, but what you take away from the experience that's important. Okay. So the process of spiritual ego death, ceremonies, ayahuasca trips, psychedelic experiences, religious ceremonies that they perform ego death exorcisms, the religious ceremonies, things of that nature. Again, I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm saying the consciousness that they do it or the purpose underlying it is wrong. Okay. So we can go several ways on this. One, ego death is where individuals who want to escape this reality through a spiritual path. Okay? They hate the body, they hate the darkness, they hate the heaviness of this world. In religion, spirituality, this is a hellhole. This is where sin is created, and all that stuff that we hear about. We want to escape our body. Our bodies are not good enough. Our bodies are always in sin. That's what we've been taught, which is actually bullshit, straight out bullshit, guys. Okay, you don't need, that super intelligence that you created, that pure source that created us. It took what, over billions of years to render a highly sophisticated piece of machinery, okay, as a human form, and then we go, well, shit, it's garbage. We want to escape. Well, why the hell did you come here in the first place? Right? What was your original reason? If you knew the original reason, you'd go, damn, this is pretty amazing. Just look at your hands, move your hands around. It's pretty amazing technology. Right? The technology that we have today, advanced, but not nearly compared to where we are. It'd be like, the first wheel, literally. Even before that, that's how far back we are in today's technology compared to who we are as a human being or the realities around you. Right? So take a deep breath in. We'll make this an experiential experience. So that's the spiritual side. The other side is, in today's society, the wealthy people, the wealthy individuals, they have a lot of ego. Okay. And so in that case, ego is bad. We need to kill it off. We need to destroy the ego. Each way, no matter if it's the spiritual side or the spiritual, religious, or the um, the wealth side, today's society side. Okay, the physicalness of this realm. Both sides again are wrong, right? Ego, having a big ego is bad. It's really not. It's not at all. It's just how we go through the process. So in this episode, what we're going to do is on this Moss on Sunday Life Explained. What we're gonna do is strip away illusions and get to the core of what truly matters. So today, again, the subject, both profound, the subject that we're talking about can be very, very profound. And just like anything else, it can be very perilous as well. Spiritual ego death. So, again, as I've talked about more often than not, this concept is very misunderstood on both sides. Right? So, and this is where people get lost. We get stuck in the woods, and then we don't know what the hell to do. And I'll give you some of the say some of the aftermath on, say, spiritual and business ego death. Right. So a lot of times, again, it's always been misunderstood. Um, but if done right, spiritual ego death is actually the gateway to awakening. It's the way to unlock your deepest potential. And then through the lens of XI, what we'll do is literally through the lens of XI science, will guide you into how to master actually the spiritual ego death. Do it properly, so you can go into, say, a fantastic journey of who you really are. Right. All right. Again, if you don't do it right, it be well, it's not it's not a good thing, guys. And we'll go through some of the distortions or some of the after effects of how people go through ego death improperly. right? So, what we'll be discussing, three topics here: the misconception of spiritual ego death, or the death, not just spiritual ego death, but the death of ego overall, right? Or how society thinks that ego is a bad thing, right? The dangers of unsupervised ego death. Again, some of the aftermath on people who have gone through ego death, and then three, the XI approach to true spiritual ego. Okay. All right. So we'll go. We'll get into the misconceptions of spiritual ego here. Let's take a deep breath in. Let's slow down in just a second here. All right. So many believe that spiritual ego death is about the annihilation of the self, just like what I talked about earlier, right? In religions, especially the Catholic religion, this you're born in sin, you live in sin, and you die in sin. Again, the annihilation of not being good enough, not being worthy, right? Hence, a lot of people in that religion do not feel worthy, right? They're not good enough, right? But that's a dangerous misconception, by the way. On the other side of it is, again, like I said, the wealthy individuals, right? People who have mass amounts of ego, right? It's messed up ego for sure, not denying that. But people who have, why do they have mass amounts of ego? And then we have to quell or again annihilate that ego, right? So again, it's not about destroying who you are, but about dissolving the false self that's been created, the ego. So the ego that's been built by social conditioning, traumas, and fear, and also success, right? Spiritual and wealth sides. In these teachings of, well, let's see. Take a breath in. In XI, we understand that true ego death is about transcending the limitations of the mind, allowing your authentic, multidimensional self to emerge out of out of the noise that we have. The noise is, your genetic patterns, the way you understand this reality, the concepts that you've put to understanding this reality, the physics that you've put to this reality outside of the actual physics that is um, that is really happening for us. Okay, take a breath in. So the misconception of spiritual ego death, and then we'll go through the dangers of unsupervised ego death. All right. So one of the things that I want to get into before we get into the side effects of wrongful ego death is one, we are already talking about what happens when people start to say disconnect from them. Okay. And so some of the side effects of wrongful ego death. On the spiritual side, what happens is people go through a spiritual death of their body, of their identity, of who they are, of their physical form. They actually can do that, right? So what is the science behind that? Let me explain that in just a second, because it's literally the same thing on both sides. On the other side is that people become highly wealthy, right? And these are some extremes, and then not so extreme examples. People become really highly wealthy for some reason or another. They become wealthy, or through some event or some situation. Sometimes they might have sold their soul, right? Again, which is an ego death, right? By the way, all right, and I'll explain why. It does get pretty dark, by the way. Some people, for example, they want unbelievable powers or unbelievable success or fortune or fame, right? They'll do anything for that. They'll do anything to connect with a person or marry them or whatever it is. Again, it doesn't really matter. But basically what they did is basically, I'll do anything. I'm going to sell my soul, my spirit, and then in exchange for the physicalness. Okay. So when you do that, it is a death because your presence is taken away from it. Okay. And if you've noticed, highly successful individuals, again, on the wealth side or the religious side, it's the same thing. As they start to realize that they've sold the most precious thing, instead of expanding, they've given it away, okay, which is, again, very, very wrong for you. What happens to them? They become really egotistical. They grasp on to that piece of ego that's left, right? Say they had 100 pounds of, identity, right? Your essence, 100 pounds. You've spent all that. You've only got a few ounces left, right? Maybe a pound at most. Okay, a lot of highly successful individuals, this is what they've done, right? They've got a pound of that, say, essence left, and then they grasp onto it because it becomes so precious. Makes sense for you? Again, they sold everything. So what do? They become very egotistical. Right? Ego is a way of protecting who you are in its right sense. First principle definition of ego is about protecting who your presence is, what your presence is, and the reflection of your presence here in physical form. It's holding on to a moment of time and space where you're solid. If you don't have the ego, if you don't have enough ego, you'll just get boom, you'll just get pulled away. Hence, highly, again, successful people who have done it the wrong way. Okay. Um, Gosh, I could, like the dark state, the deep state, those types of individuals, not Charles Schwab, Carl Schwab, those type of individuals. Again, perhaps Joe Biden. If you look into his eyes, there's nothing there, right? Again, everything's escaped from them, and they hold on to that last bit. By the way, so you have to have a lot of ego. The ego has to say double up, quadruple up, 10 times, 10x it to hold on to the identity that you have. Well, since you don't have enough strength to hold on to that identity because it creates a vacuum, literally a vacuum that just pulls that your physical essence out of you. So you feel like death, by the way. Okay. Those individuals who, again, what I'm talking about, comment in, they look like death. Okay. They look like death, right? Uh, I'm just wanting to put these comments a bit higher here. Okay. Those individuals, again, they look like death here. Sorry, guys. I have to rearrange my screen. All right. So they hold on to that illusion, right? Like somebody was saying, they hold on to that illusion. And then what happens is they have to, say, suck the life out of you. Hence, they think sucking the life out of you will sustain them. It doesn't work out. Right? The same thing with spiritual death as well. Bill Gates, absolutely. Again, all those individuals. Again, uh, I'm not saying. And then what the problem with that is that people go. Well, gosh, you know what? What's going to happen is um, you know people attach people attach wealth. Wealth is the problem, and they move away. That's an ego death for the poor as well, by the way, because then now you've associated again the effect. You've associated to the effects, not the cause. The cause I just explained. Right? They sold their souls, their self. Okay. You're looking at the effect. Oh, and you're associating, say, wealth or spirituality. Religions and spirituality. Look at some of the churches, some of the synagogues, some of the mosques in there. Look at the heinous things that they do to people. Why do you think they do that? Look at what they do to young boys. Why do you think they do that? Because they've sold their identities. They've sold, again, they've slaughtered, they've annihilated who they are. So what do they have to do? They have to like suck the life out of those other individuals. People who are in Hollywood. Again, we know all this stuff. That is ego death at the physical realm. Spiritual ego death that some people go through. Again, these are um, these are Keith Richards. Some very interesting about Keith Richards, by the way. Musk is a very interesting concept. If we have time, remind me to talk about those two. Madonna for sure, but Keith Richards, Musk, they're different. There's nuances in that. Okay, and I'll talk about that again if we have time. Right. So on on the spiritual aspect of it, right now it's become a popular to let's kill off the ego, but in reality, what you're doing in that essence, okay, and these are some of the side effects of wrongful ego death, is what people do at a spiritual level, especially like psychedelics and ayahuasca. They go through the process of ego death, and then what happens for those individuals is you have a filter. Your light is shining through, just like a projector. Imagine a projector, right? Well, shining through. You have filters. The film is not in the projector. Right? You basically have light, and then there's again, I don't know how many layers of filters that render you in physical form. Right? That's how this reality works. Again, filter upon filter upon filter. Right? That to create who you are. Okay. So in this case, when you have an ego death, basically it's the death of humans, of being human in this reality. So in that case, what happens? What happens is that the ego death, that filter of what you call being human in this reality, you kill that because you hate it. Okay. Most people, again, who go through ego death, they do not want to be human anymore. It's too painful for them. Camelin? Yeah, absolutely. Um, so I'm just looking through some of the comments. All right. So what happens is you eliminate that. And then what happens is some of the psychological issues that they have. They cannot understand what they are, who they are in this physical form. Okay? It's crazy stuff. So they literally have deleted the filter of being human. This is where a lot of psychological, say, disturbances come. This is where they get fragmented. This is where they get distorted. This is where they don't understand any concept of being human. This is where their bodies start to give way because you're in the shape of supposed to be a human. If you don't have that filter, your body starts to say morph into strange shapes. You'll start getting strange diseases, whatever it is. It's really crazy shit that happens when people kill off the ego. Okay. All right. Take a breath in. All right. So a lot of you commenting in on a lot of people, which is fantastic. Okay. But if you're attracted to them or repelled by them, okay, you have to ask yourself, okay, what is it? What frequency is it in me that is attracting that person? Maybe back in the day, you loved people, like some famous singer, right? You wanted to be just like them, right? So what made you attracted to them? Was it, excuse me, actually their singing qualities or the presence that say control them. Okay? So again, you want to take that stuff out. What makes you repel people like that? Okay. Again, you just want to make sure that you are not part of the problem. Okay. So you want to move away from that. All right. So we'll go into part two, the dangers of unsupervised ego death. Okay. So entering into, say, spiritual ego death without guidance is like navigating, well, a battlefield, this reality blindfolded. Okay? You do not understand the concepts. You don't have any more reference points anymore. This is where those individuals who have ego death, they're just numb. They just literally are decaying in life. They start to decay because there's no reference points. Your body cannot be created again. So really hard, heavy stuff, guys, if you don't do it properly. So again, without guidance, it is like entering a battlefield blindfolded. Okay? And you might think that you're on the path of enlightenment, and it might feel enlightened. You might feel enlightened, but without the right understanding, you could end up again reinforcing the very ego you're trying to dissolve. So XI shows us that the ego death isn't something to be taken lightly. It's literally a journey into the depths of your consciousness where the stakes are super, super high, guys. So without proper guidance, you risk, um, and these are words, psychological fragmentation. Take a look at that. Right? It's a real, it is a real after effect. Right? Spiritual bypassing, or worse, a false sense of superiority disguised as enlightenment. What I just talked about. So those spiritual people, right? They go through the same process as those individuals who have amassed great wealth by selling their soul, so to speak. By the way, there's a science behind that. It's not your normal terms, right? There is a science behind selling your soul, by the way. Straight out physics. It literally is straight out math, right? It's not just the stuff that you hear in XI here. What time is it? In XI, we literally go through the science of why that stuff happens. We're not like modern science where it goes, oh, we don't understand that stuff, so we're just going to go, there's no proof, so we're not going to believe it. Shit happens all the time, guys, right? They have an ego. Scientists have an ego, by the way. Have you ever noticed that if you can't figure shit out, what do people do? If you can't figure shit out, what do people do? They become very egotistical. They become highly, highly defensive. They go, well, shit, that doesn't matter. I don't care. I'm doing it this way. What are they doing? Right? At a very, very minimal level. I'm giving you extremes. Now I'm giving you minimal levels so you can understand it. Right? Because many of you probably didn't sell your soul, didn't do a lot of that stuff. But at a minimal level, you're whittling away at your spirit. Right? At a minimal level, again, you hold on to an identity that isn't there, right? You're holding on to falsities, you're holding on to lies, making it believe, making it go, making it so. Doesn't really work out. You're holding to an identity of yourself that shouldn't exist. Think of it. This is why XI for some of you is so hard. You've done the right thing. It's like, gosh, I've done the right thing. I've sacrificed all this and all that. And now, Moss, you're telling me that, I did it wrong. I'm not saying that you did it wrong. I'm just saying that you got the wrong after effects, right? Maybe you did do it wrong. I don't know. It's up to you. Look at the end results for you. Right? So, all right. Let's take a deep breath in. Again, I'm not going to go through all the distorted patterns of people who have wrongful ego death, because it is a wrongful death, by the way. But you can research spiritual ego death, its ramifications, psychological fragmentation. All those things are about ego death. You can research highly successful individuals and how they died, for example. Okay, take a look at that, and look, it's some crazy, crazy shit. You can research those families. By the way, it's not just that individual. That's the problem, guys, with ego death done wrong, improperly, either spiritual side or the business side. Let's just put it that way. um, it not only affects you, it affects your genetics, it affects your downline. In spiritual terms, what is it, the sins of the father. Okay? That's the ego death. By the way, selling yourself and spiritual ego death might be a little different, but it's kind of like one and the same. That's why I talk about both of them. Okay? All right. So just because of time, we'll go into number three, the XI approach to true spiritual ego death. All right. So we'll talk about that for a second, how you want to do it right, what it's about, what's the first principle definition, or what is the universal definition on ego death, by the way. Okay. So XI offers a method to approach spiritual ego death that's actually rooted in the wisdom of the ages and the power of like modern understanding, right? What we know it as, right? Now, now it's timeless knowledge, by the way, billions of years, way before man was even around. Right? So this isn't about following outdated practices or incomplete teachings. It's literally about engaging with the true nature of consciousness. That's where XI comes in. It coming through into the true nature of the physics of the consciousness, or what I call dimensional consciousness. Okay? So with XI, we don't just dissolve the ego, we transform it using inception frequencies, again, your core level frequencies of who you are to align with your higher dimension. So the result, it's a profound awakening that's safe. Many of you have gone through that process. How many of you are starting to realize it's like, oh my God, this is what life is really about? Again, comment in. How many of you gone through that? It's like you start to realize, oh, it's like, oh shit, that's why that happened to me back in the day. That's you realizing and then dissolving your old versions of who you are. Right? So again, it is a profound awakening that's safe, structured, and infinitely more powerful. Because if you're creating death to feel enlightened, that's what spiritual ego death for most individuals are. Okay? They do feel enlightened for a bit because you're euphoric. You've removed yourself of the physical plane, but it's kind of like holding your breath. Okay? You hold your breath, and you go, shit, I don't need to breathe anymore. But how long can you hold your breath? And then you start to realize the ramifications of, well, holding your breath. Imagine that you're underwater. Okay? You're underwater, you have to hold your breath. And you go, damn, it's so beautiful down here. It's amazing. And then you start to understand the ramifications of not being able to breathe. Okay. Most spiritual ego death through psychedelics. That's why we have Mindscapes Unleashed course, doing it properly. The Lionsgate here, human upgrade. That's proper spiritual ego death, especially the self-actualized version. Not the self healing is fantastic. It gets you ready for ego death. Then the self actualization actually allows you to uh, dispel or again let go of your old self. So take a breath in again. So these are some of the steps and practices that will guide you through the ego death, like I just talked about. Some of the courses we offer. Again, you emerge not just alive, but more alive than ever before. Okay? What you're doing is that you're peeling away layers of time and space. You're peeling away the residue of your parents' experiences, the genetics. You're peeling away society's patterns. Look at nature, right? It goes through a proper ego death, by the way. If you think of it as a yearly cycle, there's also, 10,000-year-old cycles, 200,000-year-old cycles, who knows? But say a yearly cycle, one that we're familiar with. The ego death is literally fall for you if you tune it to that. Right? The fall season. It's like, hey, it worked back in the day. You know, I need to let it go so I can rebirth. Right? So if you do proper ego death properly, you allow the experiences that you've had, good or bad, to nurture yourself in the future. So it's always a blossoming process for you. Okay. Again, that's how nature does it properly. The death is wintertime, springtime. Again, you're anew. Simple as that. Very, very simple, guys. Nature makes it very, very, very simple. But again, since you didn't let go of the proper self, basically, you didn't let go of the old versions of you in time and space. And what you let go of the most important, you let go of your light. Right? And as your light dies off, well, you're going to die off in this reality. And it's not a good thing. By the way, you go, well, I didn't want to be here anyway. If you didn't do this reality properly, guys, and you're not awakened, you won't go into the higher realms and do that properly. I see it all the time, by the way. People who've done religion and their wealth, and then you have a session with me and I go, oh hey, who's this man or woman that's hanging around you that they might have died recently, or they even died like 30, 40 years ago. And and I describe him to the T. It's like, oh yeah, that's my father, late husband, whoever it is, right? Again, they just hover, they get fucked up. What you don't experience, what you didn't awaken in this level, you'll just take it into the next level. Again, so you want to do death properly. You want to peel all those layers of away. You want to sacrifice the experiences, the distortions of this reality, and take onto you the grandness, the possibilities of what you could be, the experiences that you have today. Right? You can use that as an ego death. Each and every moment that you're creating yourself here in this reality. Let it go away. Each and every moment, just go. Yep, that was the old moment. My old self is gone. This is my new self. So these are the three things, with or without. If you don't do anything with me, that's totally cool. But on your own, you can give it a try. Again, start to understand. You step into a new version of self. Your consciousness literally steps into a new body. Again, we teach this in especially the human upgrade, right? You're always stepping into a new what checkerboard floor. Okay? That's how you move through time. You think it's just time is just fluid, but you literally your light is shining from here to here to here to here, right? And that's how you create movement. You just shine the light, and then and you look like you're moving, or you're animated, right? But what people do is like, well, no, wait, I'm going to this next right, tile, and these are for you all like, in a human upgrade. I'm going to the next tile. I'm going to take this tile with, and then you go to the next tile because you have because you're in time. I'll take that tile with too. Now imagine how many say dimensions or tiles that you've taken with just in your lifetime. Now imagine all that of your parents' lifetime. That's the death that you want to create. That's the spiritual death that you want to let go. Right? All right. All right. Hopefully that helped. I'll answer some questions here. Uh, spatial referencing. Again, you always once you get into spatial referencing, the basics are you reference with your five senses. Then as you get into intermediate spatial referencing, you'll start to reference moments of time, moments of self, moments of say realities for you. Okay, higher level spatial referencing, you start to reference more realities, possibilities, and then also say dimensions of consciousness. Right? And that's where the real fun stuff happens. All right. Let's go into. Do you guys want to hear about what's his name? Musk and um, Keith Richards? You guys want to do that? Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Do you guys want to go through that, or I could scan you guys, whichever one you guys you want. So again, it's your choice, guys. Elon Musk, Keith Richards, or we can scan you. Okay? Musk. All right. So Musk. So what's happening for him? Okay. Again, ego death. Did he sell his soul? Not necessarily. Not really at all. He's actually starting to understand how other people have sold their soul. Okay. But being at that high levels of say engagement, to hold on to billions and billions of dollars, okay, you really, really, really have to understand. You really have to understand say, the logic. And as you ascend, you get very intuitive, right? Highly successful individuals, whether corrupt or saintly, again, they're very, very intuitive of other people's frequencies, right? And that's what we teach you at XI, by the way, right? And then what he does is he's like he looks around and it's like fuck, everybody else is fucked up. And then what happens is that well, I'm a billionaire, and all these other people aren't billionaires or trillionaires nowadays. Again, not that they're worth valued that much. It's just that money has no value, so they're now trillionaires. Right? Crazy shit, right? Doesn't That stuff doesn't happen in nature? But we'll talk about that real value on some other MOS. So in this reference point, he's referencing himself to all the people around him. Okay? And as he references, it's like shit. For me to get to that next level, for me to be successful, do I have to sell myself? And then it's his choice. Now, if somebody tells him about XI, because I've pulled a lot of people, I've pulled a lot of CEOs, business owners that go, fuck, for me to have my company make another $1 billion, look at Jeff Bezos. There was a point in time where he's a great guy, and then it's like, gosh, you know what? To go to the next level, I guess I have to do what everybody else did. Get it? And then out of pressure, they go, fuck, they sell. They go, okay. So that's where Musk is. And he's always like pulling away, if you've noticed. He's like, there's a lot of scams. He talks about all that stuff, but mainly through a science point of view. Okay. So that's where Musk is. Again, hopefully we can pull him back because he is a powerful agent. By the way, a lot of those individuals, a lot of kids, younger generations of the dark families, they can be pulled back. They have the essence of wealth, but they can do it properly. Okay? All right. So Keith Richards is pretty interesting. He's actually a pretty cool guy from what I see. Okay? Of course, he's done some fucked up things. I'm not saying, just because you're awakened doesn't mean you don't do fucked up things. You just do it from a different level. But here's what Richard does. He basically who's the other band member? Keith Richards, the other guy that looks really, 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 really gross, ugly. He's literally sold his soul. So, anyway, so so what Keith does is basically he goes in to the darkness because that's where, say, the music basically is, but not really. But that's people have a lot of people have gotten, say, their creativity through the darkness. You can get it through the light brilliance as well, but again, people do it wrong. Anyway, they go through. They go through. He goes in, okay, and then he performs and all that stuff. That's where he gets that high, that high, that intensity, that charisma, that magnetism, and so on like that. Okay. He goes in and then he comes out. He kind of goes, well, I'm going to work now. I need to be like taken over. And then he goes, and then he only allows it for a little bit, and then he steps out. And this is where you see him. He goes, does his stage act, and then he goes and wears like a normal closed business suit. It's like, nope, that stays there. This stays here. Right? A lot of you might do that as well. You're a CEO, you're a mother, you're whatever. What do? You lose your identity. You go put on another clothes, another aspect. You don't have to necessarily sell yourself, but again, you're in a different dimension, and then you pull yourself back. Right? Alice Cooper, he's actually pretty cool. He went into those realms, and then at some point, it's like, fuck, there's just no way I'm selling my soul anymore. And then he pulled back. Okay. So Alice Cooper's, he kind of went like against society, against the norms of society, which you should anyway. And then it's like, well, shit. If I'm going against society, I don't want to go this way into it because that's pretty dark shit. A lot of those people do that, right? They go against society into something that's even just as darker. So Alice Cooper actually stepped out. It's like, fuck, you know. So he came back out. All right. So what about you though? That's the key. Do you step out of yourself? Right? Do you connect with whoever and then you morph into somebody else in front of that person? Right? Did you do that with your parents? Right? You hid your young self through. Again, that's an ego death, by the way. isn't it? Because basically, you buried your ego alive. It's not necessarily a death, but you buried your, say, essence or presence alive. Right? The ego is just a tool to say dig yourself out, literally. All right. Trump, really interesting since his near death experience. And I put a video out there. You can look at Masati's Trump and his assassination, I think, or maybe the team can put that video on that link. It's really quite intriguing. But yeah, for Trump, his basically kind of like Elon Musk. It's like shit. If I'm going to win this election, or if I'm going to be bolder, I have to do more of the dark shit that I did. Okay, basically that's, and then he gets, he's okay, but he gets dark. I mean, he's a businessman. He gets darker and darker. But then again, he'll go pull. The near death has allowed him to go. No, wait a second. I can do it this way. Again, it's a separation. It's a death. So he could go into a proper ego death and take away or disconnect. I went through spiritual ego death properly. I let go of a lot of stuff, by the way, right? That's the way you want to do it. All right, guys, really good talk. Didn't get a chance to really scan you guys. Next time around, we'll take more time on scanning you. All right. All right. For now, though, guys, notice what you notice. Notice the details of what you're noticing. All right. Peace.